Hey everybody, Mike Banner here, ready for another episode of 62 Who Knew. And before we jump in, because I want to jump in quickly, because we have a fantastic guest and a topic that just touches every family in every aspect of planning for retirement and aging in place. But before we do that, with Father's Day only 9 days away, I'd like to show you the best book in the world. This is my book. It's called A Gift from My Father. And your father or your grandfather or any loved one in your life, this book will make them smile, I promise. That's a picture of my dad on the cover just the day before he left for World War II. This is a happy book, and it's about the greatest generation and how they built this great country. So again, A Gift from My Father. Go to Amazon and buy many of these books. Thank you. Okay. Now, it is so much, I'm so happy to have this person on. We kind of clicked on social media, talked to each other, and I went, oh my God, you have to be on the podcast. So everyone please meet Annalee Kruger. Annalee is a nationally recognized aging strategy consultant, founder of Care Right and ASCA, best-selling author of The Invisible Patient, we'll be talking a lot about that, and trusted expert helping families and professionals navigate caregiving, dementia, and end-of-life planning with clarity, compassion, and confidence for 30 years. So you started when you were like 12. That's really good, Annalee. Yeah, you were so young when you started this track. Thank you so much for being here. We've had such good conversations in preparation for this.
Yeah, thank you for having me here, Mike.
Okay, and I know you have a book too. I mean, I just read it. So, yeah. So, is that also on Amazon?
It is. It's called The Invisible Patient, the emotional, financial, and physical toll on family caregivers. The reason there's a bench on there is because every family caregiver feels like they are alone in this journey, and I promise you, you are not. There are over 65 million family caregivers just in the United States, and that's just who identifies as a caregiver. Many families are caregiving, and they don't realize that that's what they're doing. They're just helping dad out. Well, that's called a caregiver.
Yeah, that's right. Well, you know, your expertise hits very close home to me because I was my dad's caregiver. Maybe the last couple of years of his life, but mostly the last 6 to 9 months. And I was proud to do it. You know, my viewers have heard this story before. It was something I always wanted to do, whether it was my mom or my dad. We lost my mom way too early to cancer. But with my dad, I mean, I was the son. I'm going to take care of my dad. And never, ever gave any thought to, quite frankly, the emotional, financial, mental stress that it put not just on me, but on dad, okay, for me doing certain things that he never really saw his son doing. My business suffered because I wasn't there running it. And then it was just a few years ago on the 62 Who Knew television show that a national long-term care expert by the name of Mark Goldberg started reading statistics to me about caregivers who predecease the people they're caregiving for. And this was close to 5 years ago, and I went, what did you just say? I mean, we had a panel on that show, and I interrupted everybody. I said, well, say that again. So what you do, preparing, helping, and assisting the caregiver, to me is just staggering because so many of us go through life not looking forward, but being proud of, I'm going to be the person that takes care of mom or dad. They were great for me. I'm going to be great for them. Yeah. But it's not what most people think, is it?
No. And the reality is, you know, so I'm a global virtual family caregiver, senior care, dementia, and end-of-life consultant for families and corporations and financial planners all across the world. And we know that about 58% of adult children will get thrust into the role of caregiving. And 100% of them, I promise you, 100% of them are ill-prepared. They don't understand what they're getting themselves into. They got thrust into it. You know, no one planned on having that stroke last Thursday, but guess what? Millions of people had a major stroke last Thursday. And it puts a family in a total tailspin, and they find that they have to make really big decisions quickly because if their parent is at the hospital, the hospital will say, here's a list of facilities, go find one by noon tomorrow. And they have no idea what questions to ask, what to look for. When I used to be an employee in senior care and doing the tours with these families, I would say, well, what do your parents have in order? Like, do they have a living will, power of attorney? Is your dad a veteran? How are they going to pay for this extended care once Medicare, finishes paying and so forth? And so I was spending hours at a time with these adult family members or the healthy spouse. And they're like, we've never had any of these conversations about the what whens of aging. And that's why I started Care Right Incorporated in 2011 as a virtual family caregiver consultant.
Yeah, it's so badly needed because no one's prepared. I mean, unless you're a professional in your field of work, you're prepared. Maybe people that you work with are prepared, but no layman, no matter what you are, can possibly be prepared.
Right. Well, and we call it, I call it the caregiver snowball. If mom has a broken hip, you're like, yeah, we can kind of suck this up for 4 to 6 weeks. And yeah, I can maybe take some FMLA or just use up my vacation or whatever. But that's, taking care of someone with a temporary condition where you need to help with bathing, dressing, and grooming. That's a whole different ballgame than taking care of someone who has, dementia or frontal temporal lobe dementia or mental health issues. And that's where families get caught, is because they're like, well, I thought that this was going to be temporary and now it's not. And now dad's dementia has progressed to the point where he's got his days and nights mixed up, or he's getting combative or paranoid. And the kids they're trying their hardest to manage their parents in the best way that they can, but life is busy for everybody. And like you experienced with taking care of your dad, I have the same issue too with taking care of my parents for the last 5 to actually 7 years. It does affect your business. You have to step away for long periods of time when there's 10 or 15 doctor's appointments every month, and there's dementia,
exactly right.
There's dementia, or there's falling that happens. And, you think you can handle things, and you can until you can't. And then what? And then when you find out, oh gosh, mom or dad don't have their estate documents in order, they don't have their grab and go binder. They don't have any accounts, passwords. They don't have, their long-term care insurance policy at the fingertips. They don't have anything prepared, no business succession plan. A lot of my clients have multiple properties across the country, and the kids are like, oh my gosh, now I have to manage all these properties plus mom and dad. And so unfortunately, by the time families come to us at Care Right for now a crisis plan, they're not getting along, because they're now in crisis, they're overwhelmed and they're burned out. And now they have to make really big decisions quickly. And no one ever feels comfortable with that.
Yeah.
Ever.
I know. Like you
ever.
Yeah, and like you said before we started the recording, the aging plan, in more times than not, is a crisis plan, because there was no aging plan.
That's right.
Now we need it. Well, that's not an aging plan. The time is here. It's a crisis plan. And then, of course, this is an entirely new other show, which we've already done, and we'll be bringing back that wonderful person. But, women who are normally, more times than not, the caretaker of the family. It is usually the woman in the family taking care of mom or dad or mother-in-law or father-in-law. Not only is it the emotion and the stress of everything that we're going to talk about, or we are talking about, but it's 15 or 20 years later when mom is in her 60s and she looks in her 401k or her IRA or whatever retirement vehicle she has, and looks at her husband and goes, that's funny. We both make the same amount of money, but you have hundreds of thousands of dollars more for retirement put away. What the hell happened? Well, what the hell happened is you took 8 to 10 years off to take care of your parents or your in-laws, or maybe a sick child or a sick grandchild, because it's always mom that does that. So the financial ramifications to those caretakers, to those wonderful moms and daughters, that sometimes doesn't hit for decades.
That's right. and they may have already taken a period of time off work or stepped away from their career to child raise. And now they finally get some footing and traction within the career. And now dad has a stroke and, oh, he's the caregiver to mom with dementia. And then the whole thing just starts all over again. And so I talk to families about, your situation is a house of cards, and it's only going to take a little tiny breeze for everything to collapse. And the other thing is, families tend to assume that their siblings are going to help out. And that's rarely the case. And, you talk about the women taking care of elderly loved ones. Well, a lot of people end up becoming a caregiver to a person of the opposite sex or an in-law, and it's just not comfortable.
No, not at all.
It's hard to give your dad a shower, as an example, or it's hard for a son to have to bathe his mother, and it's just uncomfortable and awkward. And that's why we need to talk about the what whens of aging, because what are your goals as you age? We know that seniors want to age in place at home, and we know that they don't want to be a burden on their kids. But guess who is always reaching out to Care Right for an aging plan now / crisis plan? It's the adult kids.
That's right.
My typical son or daughter, because they have to get on my calendar for their consult, they have to fill out a questionnaire, right? So that I could at least have a sense of what's going on with their situation when I get on the call with them. And so they have to fill out a questionnaire. And I know that my typical son or daughter is spending $15,000 the year prior or up until that consult time in just emergency airfare. Because when you get that call, airfare is not $69 on Frontier. It's $1,800. It can be $2,000. And so they tend to get a one-way ticket because they're like, I don't know how long I'm going to be away from work this time.
That's right.
And that $15,000, that is just airfare. That's not car rentals or hotels because they can't stay with their parents because the house smells like a nursing home, or they don't get along with their parent. Their parent's car is trashed because it's been dinged up. And that's not including them not taking the job promotion, or that's not including them, stepping away from their business. It's not including them sometimes retiring early because they didn't know that there's an aging plan solution out here to have to, you can still keep your life going. You don't have to allow caregiving to derail your whole life, your marriage, your relationships, and certainly your health. If you have an aging plan in place where you understand senior care options, senior care costs based on what your loved one can afford. If you understand dementia progression, then you don't get all riled up every time dad asks you the same thing 400 times a day. Or when he gets his days and nights mixed up, we actually have enough supports and services in place so that you can have your life and feel again like that son or daughter or spouse.
You've spent years building equity in your home, and now it's time to let that equity work for you. The fractional sale of your home equity lets you access the cash you need without taking on additional debt. It is a game-changing tool to help fund retirement, cover healthcare costs, or simply enhance your lifestyle. No monthly payments, no interest, just financial freedom. Turn your biggest asset into your greatest retirement ally through the power of fractional home equity. To learn more about this, go to www.62whoknew.com and check on the Chiefs link.
Are you turning 65? Well, if so, the most important decision in your life right now is to determine which Medicare plan you need to be on for your unique changes in life. Are you still working? You on your employer's plan? How about being a snowbird? If so, you need to speak to a Medicare consultant who can help you with your needs. I'm Diane Daniels, and I'm the CEO of Medicare Nation. Go to www.62whoknew.com and click on the Medicare Nation tab. I will give you a free consultation to make sure we find the right plan for your unique needs.
I know that there are viewers listening right now going, oh my God, she's talking about me. I mean, like right now, my ex-wife number 2, she is, you just described what she's going through. Her mother, just a wonderful person. I am her favorite ex-son-in-law, by the way, is developing dementia or has dementia, and it's getting worse and worse. And My ex-wife is a cognitive behavioral therapist in the VA here in Tampa, just a wonderful human being that helps soldiers, helps everybody she can. But she's had to take off unlimited weeks in the last 6 months, hop on an airplane with no notice, has spent thousands and thousands of dollars, missed work, given up all her personal time, and it's had an effect on her health. There's no doubt about it. And when her mom calls, which she does constantly, and mom's in Michigan and Dina is here in Tampa, and says, "Oh, did you just go out shopping? Will you be back soon?" It breaks her heart to say, "No, Mom, I left 3 weeks ago. I won't be back a while." And you wonder why people get sick from that pressure and that stress.
Right. Not only the toll on the family caregiver, but I can tell you that most adult children, because they don't understand aging and they certainly do not understand dementia progression, they tend to assume that their parents are doing better at home than they really are. So like in this situation with your ex-mother-in-law, if she doesn't even know that her daughter isn't there anymore and she's been gone for 3 weeks, she probably shouldn't be home by herself anymore.
Oh, she isn't. She's in a 24 memory care, and
Okay.
Knockwood was a
I
very
was
sick.
afraid she was still at home, and I'm like, oh boy.
Thank God, and she's a great mom, took care of her children wonderfully, single mom, great banker, successful, X amount of dollars in the bank, quite a hefty bank account, and going through it like water, needing the care that she needs. And it's just a sad situation. And you talk about, the different sexes and things such as that. You go back to my father and I, we couldn't be, there wasn't a father and son, that were closer than my dad and I. I mean, Dad's been gone 20 years and 20 years, 1 month and 1 day, if you want to be exact. And I still think about him 10 times a day. But I remember one night, maybe it might have been the second or third time, and our viewers have heard me tell this story, that he had a little accident in bed. We had a house with 2 master bedrooms. Down here they call that the mother-in-law's bedroom. And he gave me a yell on, we had a baby monitor. He hated when I called it a baby monitor. But on the monitor, and he said, "Hey, kiddo," he called me kiddo my whole life, "come on in here." And there was a little accident, no big deal, but it was the second or third time within a few weeks. And as I was helping him, he delivered the message very strong. And he went, "This is not what I effing want. This is not what you and I spoke about forever, about you being there for me. I need you to be there for me, to take me to Chili's tomorrow for ribs, to take me to see my granddaughter cheerlead or my son at a karate contest. I don't want you in my room at 3 a.m. helping me wipe my ass." Okay? And he said, "So go get somebody." So I did, and that somebody went from 4 to 6 hours a night to help Dad, to 8 or 10 hours, to ultimately the last couple of months before he left us, 24-hour care. And this was 20 years ago, and Dad didn't have long-term care insurance. Dad had a lot of great insurance, including unbelievable VA benefits because he was a highly decorated ex-POW. But even with all the great stuff he had, because we did not have an aging plan in place, I had no idea what it entailed. This was 20 years ago, and I was spending $7,000 or $8,000 a month. I mean, what is that today? 20,000, 30,000, 40,000?
Yeah, so
it's a number.
It's a big number. And so listeners and viewers, brace yourself, because I'm going to give you some numbers. So brace yourself. And I am not joking when I say these numbers. Okay. So first of all, when we talk about an aging plan, because we throw that word out there, but what does that mean? That means where I facilitate your family meeting, find out what's working well, what's not working well. No one ever calls me because things are going well. It's usually like, "Hey, Mom fell," or "Dad's dementia progressed," or "Mom was a caregiver to Dad with dementia, and surprisingly, she had a stroke and died." And I'm like, that's really not surprising, because the signs of caregiver burnout are always there. But, we also want to make sure that they have their grab and go binder stuff, all their documents in order and everything up to date, and business succession plan and a pet plan for all all of that type of stuff. And outlining senior care options based again on what they can afford for at home, since they want to age in place at home, but also care community costs. And so since parents want to age in place at home, that's great, but they need to understand in our care matrix project that we do with our clients as part of the aging plan helps them outline, because that's the real data where the numbers are of the cost of care. These are the care communities that offer the types of care levels that your parents are going to need. Here's what their community entrance fee is. Here's what the second person fee is. Here's their waiting list. Oh, these don't allow cameras, but these do. So it's a very robust done for you. And so the clients who are aging in place at home, which means that they're getting care and ultimately 24/7 hour care. So 24 hours, 7 days a week care at home is running roughly $30,000 to $40,000 per month for one companion. And so if you've got two parents, like we'll just take my parents as an example. My mom has passed away now. The memory care unit she was in served her the wrong diet, and she choked to death on chicken because so like this is all near and dear to me. This is not just so this is one of the reasons I do what I do, but mom isn't the only one who died prematurely because of incompetence in the healthcare system, right? Mm-hmm. So my clients who are wanting to age in place at home, will use my parents as an example. My dad is 6'4", he's 240 pounds. My mom, when she was obviously alive and I was taking care of them here at the house, she's obese, diabetic, and had early onset dementia. That's one of the reasons I left corporate America and started a virtual consultancy to help families, because that way I could be where I needed to be with my parents as well. So when my mom and dad needed care, mom would have needed two companions, because her dementia was so extreme that she's wandering. She gets her days and nights mixed up, right? So she needed someone 24/7 care. When my dad, 2 weeks after my mom fell, my dad had a stroke. If he would have needed 24/7 care, he would have needed two companions as well because of his size. He's 6'4", he's 240 pounds. And these companions aren't football linebackers, right? These are like not that. And so, for my mom and dad, if they both would have needed 24/7 care for, obviously dementia can be a 20 or 30 year disease progression, and they absolutely will need 24/7 care. It would have been, $80,000, $90,000, $100,000 a month to have 3 to 4 caregivers per month to have that type of care that they need. And so when families don't know that, or even worse, the financial planner that they're working with doesn't know that, the actual cost of care, they're actually doing their clients a massive, huge disservice by ignoring the actual cost of senior care and ignoring the cost of family caregiver burnout. And so those numbers I just shared with you, like say you have one caregiver 24/7, the companion caregiver cost is roughly $30,000 per month. So when we meet with our families on Zoom, because I created a virtual consultancy, families are always shocked, and so are their financial planners. So now that they actually have real information, like, oh, I didn't know that it was going to cost $30,000 a month for care for mom, now that's going to change their plan a little bit, isn't it? So then have that conversation of, okay, because we obviously find out how much our clients have to work with from a financial perspective. And I was saying, well, if you have $2 million and you're 72 years old and you have early onset dementia, knowing that it's going to be a 20 to 30 year disease progression, we need to plan around that now. So what is going to be the aging in place at home care budget? And what are going to be those safety triggers that is say, okay, mom, this is when we need to activate home care. This is when these things happen, that's when we need to bring in more care. And when those things happen, then that's when you need to move into a care facility. But it has to be orchestrated and planned properly, because otherwise families end up in whatever care facility has an open bed, or they spend so much money trying to stay at home that now they jeopardize their future care community options, because families also don't realize that you have to financially physically, behaviorally, and cognitively qualify to get into these different care communities, and they have to have an opening. And so if you spend so much money trying to stay at home, which is fine, I just want families to make informed decisions. But if you spend all this money at home, then it's very likely that you may not financially qualify to get into a care community. And all of these different care communities have different financial thresholds of how much money you have to financially qualify to get in there. And so that's what we educate our clients about, because they just don't understand, and they wouldn't, they are in uncharted territory. And unfortunately, when families come to us, because I don't advertise this, it's all word of mouth referrals. And so when families come to us and they're realizing now, because we educated them on the cost of care, and some of these care facilities have a 5-year waiting list. And what if mom needs memory care and dad needs assisted living, but you live in a rural area where there's not care, or there's not good quality care, or all of the facilities in your area have been cited for abuse and neglect? What does that look like then? And realistically, how often can you keep flying back and forth every time
That's
mom
right.
has an issue?
No, it's everything you're describing. My family has lived through over the last 30 years with one relative or another. And I don't know if there's any exceptions to that rule.
There are.
And then
There really are.
of course, okay, no, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, there are no exceptions, because if we're alive, that means we're not dead. And so if we're alive, and
Very
as
medical. That's one of the things we probably want to clip. If we're alive, we're not dead. I think Mr. Spock would find that highly logical. Yes.
It's very profound, isn't it?
You have your medical degree. I didn't know. If you're alive, yes, you're not dead.
That's why people pay me the big bucks. If
Thank
you're
you,
not
Doc.
dead,
Thank you,
you're still
Dr.
alive.
Thank you, Dr. Kruger. We'll get that Nobel Prize winner right over to you.
Well, and that's what people don't understand is, denial is a great place to be until you can't be there anymore.
That's
and so
so
what I
true.
mean by that is, yeah, you can take care of your loved one until you can't. And then what? Until you fall and break your hip because you're trying to catch your dad from falling and he's a big guy. Or you have your own health issues. That happens more often than not. Or little Ethel and Marvin are trying to take care of each other, but they both have cancer and one of them has dementia. So it's a challenge. And when they come to us in crisis mode, because again, no one ever calls because things are going well. Like they just don't, like, because denial, right? They're like, oh, and some of them will say, well, I heard you on a podcast, or I read your book 3 years ago, but we didn't need anything until right now, because right now they're in crisis. They're in crisis. And so unfortunately, by the time they come to us, it gets really expensive quickly. And this is why, because we offer such robust aging planning, we have this whole process, obviously, that we take our clients through. And the sad, unfortunate part of it is all of my clients have financial advisors, and about 97-ish, 96% of my clients who are also at some point working with a financial planner, they don't have any of their estate documents in order. Like, nothing is in order. And so now that dad lost capacity, now they also have to shell out about 20 grand or 30 grand in emergency guardianship and conservatorship, because the people that they pay very, very, very well didn't help make sure that they have everything in order. Now, on the same token, because I don't want all the financial planners to be all ticked off, because I do know also that some advisors, and you have to realize my niche for training has been to train the financial services industry. So I'm like very in tune to what goes on and what doesn't go on in that industry. And so there are some advisors who do have the conversations with their clients about end of life and estate documents and all of those, but the family just doesn't move forward because, again, the family's in denial. So the financial planner will say, Annalee, I've been trying to get our clients to do their estate documents for 5 years, but they just don't. And so that is human nature. But I am saying to those advisors who aren't making sure that their clients are buttoned up with even just that, you're doing a disservice to your client.
Yeah, no, you couldn't stress that enough. I know sometimes, because I have a lot of friends that are financial planners, and a couple of national ones have been on the show. And I've had more than one conversation, either via Zoom or email, like, Mike, sometimes I think 62 Who Knew is not exactly a friend to the financial planning community, because we're very quick to point out that They do what they do, and they do it very well. But again, this double-edged sword of longer lifespans is demanding that financial planners start learning some things that they didn't deal with. You're not planning for your clients to retire between 62 and 65 and die at 75. They're going to be here till 90, and soon it's going to be 95, and soon it's going to be 100. And that is a totally different type of financial planning. It also is an aging plan. Most financial planners will tell you that long-term care insurance is important and part of an aging plan. But if you ask them their level of expertise on it, the honest ones will go, not a lot. But I'll get you to somebody good. Well, that's good. That's good. Yeah. But I think the emotion of it is what you said. And that's why people have a hard time in their 50s talking about falling apart in their 70s or 80s. But that's the time, 15, 20 years beforehand. That's the time to be planning for this. When you're sharp and you're healthy and your children are sharp and healthy and your grandchildren and everybody's there, and you want to think then, I hate to use the word burden, but I'm going to be, I will. Yep. What type of burden, not love, what type of burden do you really want to be on your children and grandchildren 20 or 25 years from now? But it is very emotional. It's an emotional trap to think about that.
Well, when you think about, because my client is the whole family, right? And so everybody's on Zoom. So when I ask mom and dads, what are the Ethels and the Marvins, what are your goals as you age? It is always the same response every single time for over 30 years that I've been working with families all across the world. And their response is, again, I want to age in place at home, and I don't want to be a burden on my kids. And when I ask the kids, because the kids are the ones reaching out to me, because the parents think things are going okay, and because in their perspective, it is going well, but it's at the mercy of their adult kids who are juggling 7,000 things and trying to not get divorced because now my spouse is saying, look, I love your parents, but you got to figure something out, because now their needs are impacting our marriage and our finances and
our children, and
you're not present anymore. Like, you have no energy for the relationship or the marriage anymore. And so, that's why it's so important that we have these conversations, because nobody wants to be a burden on anyone. And the adult kids, when I ask them, what are your goals for your parents as they age? It is always a variation of the same thing, but it's always, I want them to be safe is the first thing always. I want them to be happy. I want them to have the best quality of life and the best quality of care possible. Well, the only way to make that happen for everybody, for the whole family, then is obviously we have to plan for that then. And that means you need to facilitate your family meetings so that we can talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of aging, of dementia, of the senior care costs and the landscape of senior care. People are like, well, we can just get home care. Well, you may not be able to, because what if in your area they don't have any more workers? I've got clients that are on waiting lists with home care companies because they're waiting to hire more people to be able to fully staff what that patient who's trying to stay at home needs. And they can't. And so they end up having to move into a care facility, and then they end up in whichever one has an open bed because they didn't put any forethought into this. And so as far as like from the financial planner piece of it, because I want to loop back to that, it's not surprising that they don't understand these concepts, because when you look at, for the CFP as example, there's nothing in their training that talks about relationships with your clients. There's nothing in there that talks about aging and caregiving and dementia and like the actual landscape of senior care. They're not trained in it. And so with my training with financial planners, because I train about 30 different financial planning firms. They're on my training. They're training clients of mine because they do want to differentiate themselves. They do know that their clients are starting to get more curious about, well, what can you offer me? Like, what value are you providing me? Because I'm paying you X amount of dollars a year. What am I getting for that? If you're only managing my finances, but you're not also connecting me with reliable, curated resources that I need, like aging and caregiving things, estate docs or CPAs or anything like that. If you're just working in a silo, you're really causing you're really causing harm to the clients. And so clients are starting to become much more consumer aware and expect more from their advisors. And I know a lot of coachable advisors who are like, hey, I want to learn more about this whole aging thing. And I want to make sure that I have the right financial plan in place, because many of them do care. There's a lot who clearly do not, but there are many who do care and really do want to do right by their clients.
What's the biggest threat to your retirement savings? It's not the stock market. It's the cost of long-term care. Home care, assisted living, or nursing facilities can drain your life savings in just a few short years. That's why long-term care insurance isn't a luxury. It's a necessity. It protects your assets, preserves your independence, and gives your family peace of mind. Don't leave your future to chance. Plan ahead. Protect what you've worked a lifetime to build with long-term care insurance. For more information, go to www.62whoknew.com and click on the long-term care insurance link. Planning for retirement? Your home can be your greatest financial resource. At 62whoknew.com, our mortgage link connects you to expert guidance on reverse mortgages, refinances, traditional home loans, all designed with retirement in mind. Whether you want to eliminate your mortgage payment, do debt consolidation loans, or downsize with confidence, we help you choose the right mortgage for your future. Visit the mortgage link at 62whoknew.com, because the right mortgage strategy today can mean a more secure tomorrow. Oh, there's no doubt the great majority of financial planners got into that industry to help people. No doubt about it. And they're having a rough time right now. Even the best ones are going, wow, I've been doing the same thing for 30 years. Yeah, and now I got to do something different. And that's not easy for anyone in any career. It's just not easy to go, what I've been doing doesn't work anymore, or at least doesn't work as well as it should be. You know, right. The majority of the world still lives by the cliche or the proverb, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But the truth of the matter is, in almost every model today, whether it be financial, emotional, if life is so different that if it ain't broke, break it. Because you got to do something. If you think things are the same as your mother, your father, or your grandparents, you better break it, because it's not. And reality is just one negative diagnosis away.
Right. And the reality, too, is, so I've been trying to educate and make an impact in the financial services industry relentlessly since 2011. And so, I mean, I even created a training program for financial planners to become an elder planning specialist. So like, I am not just dabbling in this, right? And so I've been trying wholeheartedly, genuinely, to train advisors who do care. I need advisors who care and are coachable. Those are the only two criteria I need, who want to differentiate themselves from other advisors by starting to bring up these conversations about the what whens of aging, and then say, well, Matilda and Arthur, I have your financial...
I love these names she does. You know,
you can tell.
There's no Dick and Jane here. These people are Matilda and Arthur.
Well,
and
you can tell.
And you know what? If Matilda and Arthur are alive, they're not dead, Anthony.
That's right.
Did you write that down?
I wrote it down.
Okay, thank you.
You can tell I've worked with seniors for...
Yes, yeah, those are older names.
Those are old names. You can tell I've worked in this industry for a long time. And those older names are starting to come back. So I'm not
Next will be Adam and Eve. Yeah, but go ahead.
Right. And so to make a referral, though, and instead of working continually in silos, because I've had advisors say, you know, Annalee, we just don't know our clients well enough to understand really what's going on in their life, because we only meet with them once a year or every other year, because we have their financial plan on autopilot. And I'm like, wow, you are leaving so many opportunities on the table to really add value. Or like when Robo Advisor came out, I said, okay, now what are you going to do? If you are not adding value and making your relationship sticky with your clients, why would they keep paying you when they can just go to robo-advisor and get the same thing, because all it is software and algorithm. That's all it is. That is all financial planning is. So it is about the relationship that you have with your client. And so, the last few years since COVID, I finally have made a lot of traction in the financial services industry. And when I speak at because I speak at a lot of their events, I'm a keynote speaker on aging and dementia and caregiving and senior care. And I always have at least 20 to 30 people come up afterwards with all sorts of questions. And guess what? It's because they are old enough now that they are seeing these issues with their own aging parents. And they're like, if I'm going through this with this big question mark of what to do with mom and dad, I bet my clients are too. And I'm like, bingo.
That's right.
And so I train them. I give them this, when they become a training client of mine, I train them on these are the different questions to ask your clients, whether they're the adult children in that 50 to 70 or 80-year-old group, or if it's the senior, the Matildas and the Arthurs. These are questions to start the conversation with your clients about the what whens of aging. So I train them, and then they have, it's so cool because then they have the confidence. It's so cool because in 2011, they looked at me like I was from Mars. And I'm like, you guys are so out of touch with what's going on in the real world with your clients, and shame on you for being so out of touch. And so if you really want to add value, you got to plan the human side of financial planning. And that is aging, caregiver burnout, stress and dementia, and the cost of care.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And I'll say it again, the great majority of financial planners, financial advisors, IFAs, whatever, they want to do what's right. But you're right. When it starts happening to them, I don't care what problem you're talking about. When it hits close to home, suddenly it has a different priority.
That's right. And then they're like, oh, and it's so cool because the ones that I train, the advisors that I train, or the companies that I train, they're like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. And then their clients are raving about how much their financial planner does for them. And that's what you want. You want raving fans. I know that's very Tony Robbins-ish, but you want raving fans because
Tony's the best.
Tony is the best because you want those types of clients because they're going to then say, hey, Sarah, their younger name, Sarah at lunch, does your advisor ever talk to you about aging and care? And they're like, no, well, you should meet with mine. He does or she does. And that's the way it's done.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any clients named Methuselah yet by any chance?
No.
I thought that was coming soon. Methuselah.
No. But who knows? I'm still young and the world is still going around. So
that's right. That's right. And what makes what you do so important, and quite frankly, what makes the message of 62 Who Knew so important, is that the scientific technologies and medical breakthroughs that we've seen in the last 30 or 40 years that are allowing us to live 30 more years past in our 60s into our 90s, in the next 10 to 20 years, those breakthroughs are going to be dwarfed with what's coming down the road. Yeah. I mean, my grandchildren, who range from 5 to 19, there's no doubt, and this isn't Mike Banner, the podcaster, saying this. This is doctors, research people from all over the country, that I have on as guests. My grandchildren are going to be playing whatever favorite sport they have, whether it's tennis or pickleball or whatever it may be, in the heat of summer here in Florida, when they're 105 years old. That's what's coming down the road. But we already have a shortage, as you pointed out, of in-home care workers, a shortage of facilities. We don't have a shortage of food, but sometimes we do. And that's with 7 billion people. If we start to live to be 100 or 110, there's going to be 12 billion people. So the idea of living longer is changing the planet. And most people wait for the crisis. But you started to say something. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, because they wait till the crisis. 85% of my week is spent doing family mediation with these families while I'm putting their crisis, while we're putting a crisis plan in place because they waited until they're in crisis mode. So for God's sake, one takeaway from this whole podcast, don't wait until there's crisis because things are going okay until they're not. Mm-hmm. But what I was going to say is that's why you're seeing so much more AI being used in healthcare. I mean, in 2008, when I got my MBA, this is exactly what I wrote my thesis on, is the changing landscape of senior care, because families are smaller than they ever were. And we have more solo agers because they didn't, just like me, not married, no kids. My dog is great, but he's not going to be my caregiver, right? And so we're already...
He'll love you the most, though.
He will love me.
Unconditional love. That's it. Case closed.
So we're already seeing robots in resident rooms or in health rooms. We're seeing, because that way that hopefully will keep Marvin from trying to constantly get out of bed, because they can be like, Marvin, it's kind of like a fake person. But we're going to be seeing more and more of technology being incorporated into senior care and healthcare, because we just have such a shortage. We also have a patient advocacy division within my company, and it's pretty common that these facilities, we join in the family's journey wherever they live and wherever they are in the decision-making journey. And a lot of them also need our care advocacy services, because the care in these facilities or with the home care workers is pretty atrocious, because they're not properly trained always. There's no one holding them accountable. The other day, I happen to have a local client, which is kind of unusual, but I have a local client, and her family has me going in twice a week to check on her mom in a memory care facility. There's supposed to be 4 workers, and there's only 2. And so there's 6 and 7 hour gaps of time before I got in the picture. There's 6 and 7 hour gaps of time, almost a whole shift, where their loved one was not getting any attention. And so that's why I tell families, or encourage families, it's up to them to follow my recommendations, but absolutely cameras in your house and cameras in the care facility if the care facility allows it, because that's how we can also gauge. So we can say, look, Matilda hasn't been bathed for 4 days. She hasn't had anyone tend to her. And when I got there, and her incontinence brief is full of what it is. Incontinence. Of matter.
Or antimatter in this case, yes.
Wrong clip too. It's full of matter.
Yes.
That's not acceptable. And so, the other thing is we've got, because I know senior care, and we have weeks and months of times where there's not anybody in leadership there. This client of mine that I'm actually doing in person, most of everything I do is virtual, but since she's local, she's been there 3 years in this memory care facility. They are on their eighth executive director, and they're on their 6th memory care wellness nurse. Right now in the building, there is no executive director and there is no wellness nurse. So who do you think is running the building? It's the wild, wild west in there. And that's why this lady went 7 hours without being
isn't there state or national guidelines to say?
There are. Of course there are. But that's my whole point, is that's why we have to plan. That's why we have to have care advocates, or take my advocacy training class if their family is going to do their own care advocacy, because these are things that are happening in senior care and no one wants to admit it. In my industry, they're like, oh, Annalee, you're always like shedding light on what's going on. And I'm like, because families need to be aware so that they can plan ahead and not have their parent be killed by incompetent workers.
You mentioned, having cameras in the facility if they'll allow it. You have so much more expertise at this than I do, so I'm going to ask this question. What possible reason would they have to not allow it?
So, I know, because on our care matrix...
That's driving me crazy since you said it.
It drives me crazy too, because when we do a care matrix, which is a very robust, done for you, outlining care options and the cost of care, that's part of our aging plan. That's part of what we ask about when we call all these different facilities on behalf of our clients. And some states don't even allow, like the state itself doesn't even allow cameras in there. And then there's some that are just corporate policy. Well, we don't allow cameras in the room. And to me, that's a deal breaker, because you have no reason to trust these workers until you do.
No, I mean, that's just absurd to me. That's just absurd.
And then there's also, now you should be able to have a camera if you're in your own apartment, like assisted living or independent living. But obviously, if you're in memory care or skilled nursing, if you have a roommate, then they will say no, because
I can understand that HIPAA, privacy, things such as that. But in your own room,
Yep. But some facilities, because you have to get prior approval from the executive director, provided that they actually have someone in leadership in the building. Like right now, where this lady is, there is no leadership. There is no one in leadership. Their med tech, their medication technician who's had a few hour class on how to administer medication.
God.
That's their leader right now. That's who they're directing families to go to with any concerns.
And this is in a world that medical technology is making us live longer every day from now on.
And this family is paying $12,000 a month for their loved one to live there.
Yeah. And they obviously...
Plus my fee, right?
And there's obviously nowhere better to go, or they would have done it, because it sounds like it's a caring family. They're right in the...
But here's the other thing, too, is, families... The last thing you want to do, that's why I do aging planning, because the last thing you want to do is keep bouncing your loved one around from facility to facility to facility, especially when they have dementia, because that disruption is so hard on them, because then they have to learn a new environment, new routine, they may have a roommate, or it's very scary. Like, nobody wants to be bounced around, but that's what happens when families don't know what they're doing. And so, when they finally, because this is her third facility, because the family didn't know what they were doing. And so this is the third facility. And this is the one she's been in the longest, because, of course, dementia is a multi-decade disease. And so she's in her third facility, and she's been there for 3 years. And the family's like, I just don't want to move her again, because now she's obviously even more demented. And at least right now she knows where her room is. But that's about the only thing she knows, right? But the family doesn't want to keep bouncing them around. And so that's why you have to either be a bold advocate for your loved one, or hire people to do it, or combination, hire professionals to be an advocate. But also you need to know what questions to ask of that professional advocate, because if you follow me on social media, I'm constantly posting about be careful who you work with, or be careful who you're planning to hire, because there's people out there that are doing senior care consulting that have no experience or they're using their chat GBTing their business. So they're like, I don't understand dementia, so I better learn about this. So they'll chat GBT, and now all of a sudden they're some sort of senior consultant.
They're experts suddenly.
Or they took a 4-hour dementia training class, and now they're some sort of dementia expert. So I train families. If you're not going to work with me, that's fine. For whatever reason, I don't know why you wouldn't, because I've done this for 30 years and helped over 20,000 families across the world. But for those who don't see that as a value, then I train them on, here are questions you're going to want to ask if you're interviewing other people.
And this hour has flown by, and there's still a lot more to talk to.
There's so
one
more.
of the mental images. Well, we're going to have you back, and one of the things I want to talk about, before we get to that, the mental image of you brought up, having robots, which I know is happening a lot. Really a lot in this country right now, of telling Marvin to get back in his bed. I pictured a robot that looks like Arnold Schwarzenegger, saying to Marvin, where are you going? Get back in bed, Marvin. And Marvin going, yes, sir. I'm not getting out of bed for the next 3 days, even if I have to go to the bathroom. I'll say that.
It's coming.
But it's coming. Nobody saw the Terminator movies. They say millions, tens of millions of people saw them, but here we're doing
Here
that.
we are. Well,
But
in the Jetsons when I was growing up.
But I want to talk about your training. I'm going to save the best for last, but you mentioned training financial planners into this type of thought process. And you and I are going to have a very, very deep conversation, more than one in the next week or two, of having you be a regular on 62 Who Knew, having your training available on the 62 Who Knew website. I don't know if it'll be up by the time this episode gets there, because it's only a couple days away, but I would love to have you be a permanent part of 62 Who Knew as we grow from hundreds of viewers to already thousands to probably tens of thousands in the month of May, but certainly into the hundreds of thousands before the end of this year. So right now, though, until it's up on the website, where can a financial advisor go to get this training from you?
Yeah, so there's two things. So real quick, because I know we're running out of time. In 2011, just to give a little background of why this came to be, in 2011, when I started Care Right, I was like, well, who should I kind of partner with who's already working with families with an intellect of planning ahead and paying for it as well? Well, financial planners. I was like, oh, that's a no-brainer. That just makes perfect sense. And so when I started sponsoring the Wisconsin FPA, I quickly learned that they're not addressing aging issues at all. And they would literally tell me, Annalee, none of our clients are family caregivers. None of them are going through dementia. None of them are going to need care. All these things that you keep talking about at our meetings, none of our clients are experiencing that. Or like I said earlier, we have your financial plan on autopilot, so they don't even know what's going on. Or they also would tell me that they don't refer any of their clients to anyone who costs money because that's that much less assets under management that they have to manage. So
Yeah, that's
kind of
greed.
like the mindset. Oh,
Yeah.
totally, total unethical.
Total greed. Yeah.
Total greed and completely unethical. So that was kind of like my baptism into the financial services world. And I'm like, wow, this is appalling. And so I was like, but it's also an opportunity because there are people who do care.
That's right.
So I created the elder Bob Mouterstock, who is my business partner for Plan for Life. Bob Mouterstock and I created the Elder Planning Specialist Certificate Program. It is a 10-week, it's actually 12 weeks. It's a 12-week online program where we teach them. I developed the program with Bob. And so it's all these things that, aging, caregiving, dementia, or as they call it, diminished capacity. It addresses all of that, how to facilitate family meetings from a financial planning perspective, not the same type that I do as a family meeting facilitator, but from a financial perspective. And so you can find that information on the website plan4lifenow.com. Several years ago, we partnered with the National FPA, and so they help co-market the program, and we offer it 2 times a year, and it sells out every single time. So there's finally, interest in the last 5-6 years for the program, but there's also a lot of financial planners who are like, look, I don't need any more initials behind my name, which is many of them. They're like, I don't want to, because it's a robust program. It's about 4 or 5 hours of time every week to get, and they're like, look, I have 2 years left before I retire. I don't, I don't want to do all this. Yeah. So I also, through Care Right, I have a training program for those companies that don't want to take the Elder Planning Specialist Certificate program. Then they hire me to do a combination of webinar training and in-person training. So I have about 30 wealth management companies who want to differentiate themselves and start knowing how to have these conversations, but they don't want to be certified. They don't want to go through all that work, because it is a lot of work to get certified. And so they're like, well, can't we just refer our clients directly to you? And I said, absolutely. And so they go on my training package first so that then they know how to broach these topics and make a referral. And so that's what many of them do, because they don't want to take a 12-week class. And I understand that.
I don't, but yeah. Especially the older ones. That's where I'm at right now.
But at least that way there's something for both interests. If they want to take a class and do all that work, because their final is that they have to create an elder plan. It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
And so for those that don't want that, that's fine. You can take my miniature classes and then we work together with their clients. And I promise you the financial planners that make the referrals, because now financial planners are my leading professional referral source. Right? And so they participate in the care matrix review process and the aging plan review process. And now they're like, wow, they just picked up that whole family as a book of business, because now they met their client's whole family. And they're like, Annalee, we had no idea that was like an unintended consequence, right? But a good one, because none of those other families advisors are talking about, aging and caregiving. And so it's an easy marketing tool for financial planners to participate in making those referrals to me to help, so that it's a complementary. They do financial plan, I do aging planning, because it's the stuff that families come to me about that derails the financial plan. And if they want legacy planning, the last thing that you would want as an advisor is clients who don't speak to their siblings or their family members anymore because of aging and caregiving. If you want to have that first, second, and third generation of clients, how many families do you think always stay in touch with each other because of aging? Many of them that destroys their relationships. So
Right.
if you're an advisor who wants like family legacy planning, that's the other way to differentiate yourself and have working together.
And all this information, whether they want to get the 12-week certification or have a referral relationship with you and take the mini class, this is all available on planforlife.com.
The certification program is on plan, the number 4,
Life.
lifenow.com. And then CareRight, they can just reach out directly to me on CareRight, CareRightInc.com website. They can just reach out to me directly there to set up training, become a training client.
Now, in the 2 minutes remaining before I thank you for being here, you're also doing something that I think is fantastic. If I was 20 years younger, I would do it, which is cloning yourself, wanting to create people like yourself to do this all over the country. And you talk about, to me, this is the technology of 30 years ago, 40 years ago. You got into tech, and people into tech today are doing very well, and they always will.
Yep.
Because of rising lifespans, people who do what you do, they're here forever, but there's not that many people doing it. So if somebody who is watching this goes, you know what? I want to do what Annalee does. I can do this. Yep. Where do they contact you?
Yeah, so my other company is the Aging Strategy Coach Academy, and that's the website for that is joinasca.com. ASCA is the Aging Strategy Coach Academy. That is my 32 years of experience and expertise of working with families and all the things that we just talked about. I created 150 hours of modules, and it's a 6-month program. Well, because it's a lot of expertise. And if someone is going to do this right, if they're going to do it, they better do it right. And so if they want to do aging planning and the type of work I do, they have to go through this training. And so that is joinasca, ASCA.com. It's a 6-month program. 150 hours. They have weekly office hours with me, and I train them to essentially do what I do. They can license everything I have is trademarked and copyrighted and licensed, because to protect it, that's only smart. And so that way I can be the Tony Robbins of aging planning globally.
I think you can.
And bring all these coaches who care through this 6-month program so that they are properly trained. And then they can stay on. I have other subscription offerings through ASCA so that they can have access to my templates and my team and all that kind of stuff, so that if they want to really do this and be invested in it, then I have ways to keep them successful and profitable.
Well, I know there's got to be people watching us that go, you know what? I want to do this. So please, and again, I am hoping for you, and we'll have that discussion next week, to be a regular here. I hope you had fun. I hope you enjoyed it. I think what you do is incredible on so many levels, that it's just a pleasure to know you and have you here. And we look forward to having you back as quickly as possible. Sometimes we do panel shows where I do bring in the best long-term care insurance people in the country, some of the highest rated financial planners in the country. And I'd love to have you on those panel shows discussing those topics as well. So Annalee, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. I appreciate it.